Can I retire with a nest egg of $500,000? I want you to think about that for a minute. How many people do you know that are retired are destitute? Most people are making it somehow. They're making ends meet. People that you know that are retired. I recently saw this stat. The average American retiree had about $170,726 in savings. Think about that. They have 170,000. So if you have a half a million, if you have $500,000, let's run the numbers. That's what we do on this channel. Also, the average retiree getting Social Security gets $1,907 a month, and the other spouse gets $1,200 and some. So let's just do $3,100, and let's say they said the average retiree spends 4,000 or 48,000, no, it's 47,853 or something like that, which would be 4,000 a month. I'm going to allow for 5,000 a month. I'm just going to say, what if you have 5,000 a month, but you're getting 3,100 for Social Security? What does that mean? That means of this 5,000, a lot of that's going to come from Social Security, so that you only need 1,900 from your nest egg coming out of that to give you a $5,000 a month lifestyle, which we're already 1,000 above what the average is. So you've got this half a million getting Social Security. The average amount's right here for a couple. And I realize not everybody's married, but I'm just going to run the numbers for the average, because a lot of people think, man, is $500,000 enough? Well, how are these people doing? How are these people doing it? They have the average retiree has 170,000. So if you have $500,000, you're in so much better shape than the average retiree, and yet they all seem to be doing okay. Okay, what we're going to do is run the numbers now. What I also do when I'm on this withdrawal stage is usually people say most their biggest spending, their go-go years are in their 60s when they retire. Then they start slowing down in their 70s, and I can testify to the fact that I'm 72. In those first few years, we did a lot of traveling. We did a lot of things. Now we're slowing down a little bit. We still do quite a bit of traveling, but we're slowing down. So I've had retirees say, run the numbers with maybe a 10% decrease that second decade and a 15% decrease the third decade. Because once you reach your 80s, you're just basically stay home. You don't go out a lot. Some people do. I realize this is just a generalization, but they told me to run the numbers with this. So I've taken the recommendation of somebody that's retired, not just what I see happening in my own life. So say again, we're 5,000 instead of the 4,000 the average retiree is. What we're going to do now is run the numbers for every single year for the last 100 years. If you had your money in the S&P 500, none of the returns are going to be identical to these, but they can give us a range. They can show us about how often you probably would have run into trouble in the last 100 years with these numbers, and project ahead with the same type returns, because why would they be much different than, again, the worst case scenario of the Depression years? And look at this, 2% of the time is the only time you'd run out of money. Why? That was 1929 and 1930. Right over here, you can see them in the red. 1929, 1930, after 20 years. Actually, in the 1929's case, you'd run out of money in 12 years. 1930's numbers, you'd run out of money in 14 years. If you had the same returns going forward with this scenario that we've set up. Now, if we change this to 4,000, then all of a sudden, which is the average expenses, all of a sudden, none these reds go away. So in other words, if we use the average expenses, so this $500,000 is no problem whatsoever. Now, if you say, well, I'm alone, I don't have a spouse or whatever, then you're back to running out of money. In 11 years, in this case, 1929. How many other times would you run out of money? Let's see here. 5% of the time you'd run out of money. Now, what could we do differently? If this was a problem, you don't have to take a 3% COLA. You take a 2% COLA. Does that make any difference? Probably not, because 1929 and 1930 was so horrible, but let's see if it does. It's just a minute to calculate this. Yes, got rid of, instead of 5% of time, only 2% of time in the money. Now, what else haven't we done? We haven't taken into account a asset allocation, 60-40 asset allocation. Let's do that. let's go ahead and say 60% of the time, uh, 60% of the money you leave in the S&P 500, 40% goes in a cash reserve account. So when the market's going down, this 25,000 is not coming out of the market. It's already being knocked down. You don't want to be having to sell in a down market. So it's coming out over this cash reserve that you have over here. Would that help any? Well, you notice the 1929 numbers, which is the numbers we have up, you're running out of money in 11 years without that asset allocation. When I go to a 60-40 split, now the money's lasting 18 years. Again, this stretch was so horrible, but in every other scenario, you've got millions of dollars. Let me show you the graph here. I mean, look at these kind of numbers. You're starting out with 500,000. You have 2 million, 4 million in these all these different years. The only time you have a problem is during the depression years and getting kind of iffy in the year 2000. Why was the year 2000 problematic? Because we had these 3 down years and then you had another down 37. So if you retired in the year 2000, it would be getting kind of problematic in this case with these kind of numbers. But again, would you cut back on your cola if you had to? In other words, people out there, you don't see most retirees destitute on food stamps asking going to the food banks. Most of them seem to be making it somehow. They cut back on their expenses if need be. And then those that get ahead some, but these kind of numbers, then you could take out more than 4%. You could take out more than 5%. You could take out lump sums to buy a car, whatever. When you've got these kind of monies, but in actuality, $500,000 looks like it'd be just fine in your nest egg. And again, you'd be so much better off than the average retiree who seems to be getting along okay anyway with 170,000. We're talking about if you have 3 times that amount. So what does it take? What does it take to get to $500,000? If you save one, this is another thing we do on this channel is run numbers for accumulation stage. If you put in $100 a month for a 40-year career, you'd be putting in 48,000. And in the worst 40-year period in the last 100 years, if you had your money in the S&P 500, you'd have 475,000. You'd basically be at 500,000. The median be 718. Folks, this is $100 a month. That's basically a little over $3 a day. That's less than the price of a Starbucks coffee. In other words, get your money in there. And then you can have this kind of money in the worst case scenario, and you can do this kind of things. Again, we haven't taken into account inflation, but we can run numbers too because you wouldn't stay in any of these numbers as we go forward. But we explain that in other videos. But please consider subscribing to this channel. Please share this channel with others. Let them know we run numbers for people, and we answer questions like this: can I retire with $500,000 in my nest egg? And you can see in almost every case you'd be just fine, unless you think we're going to have a repeat of 1929, and not just a couple down years, but year after year down, another down 35, down, down, down. You think we're going to repeat that? And then you might have a little bit of an issue, but then you just deal with it. Maybe you cut back on your expenditures. Maybe you cut out your cola. Maybe you change your asset allocation. But that's what we can do on this channel, run all kinds of numbers. So again, if you want me to run numbers for you, just give me your beginning balance, monthly contribution, or if you're in the withdrawal stage, how much you want to withdraw, you want a cola, and how long you want me to run it for in the accumulation stage. And if you can have 30 or more years until retirement, $100 a month, folks, can set you up for a nice retirement. Please share this channel. Please subscribe, share, and like these videos, and let others know about it. And thanks for watching.